there's a couple different ways to kind of do content, to do linked content, especially. Okay, so if I have, let's just say I have my content item here. Okay, all right, this is a content item, and it's got a bunch of fields. So let's do some fields that are in there. We'll do like this. Let's put a field in there. Okay, so field 1, and you know we can do fields that are like title. Okay, so that's pretty simple. Let's do this a little bit larger text. All right, so it's like title. So that's text field. That's pretty easy. But what if I wanted to build, let's say this piece of content was a carousel, okay? And I wanted to have a carousel that has like a bunch of carousel items, okay? So my carousel might have like, I'm not calling it like heading, something like this. But my carousel items, let's do a carousel item now. It's probably gonna have like maybe a title, probably gonna have an image, and maybe a call to action, something like that. CTA. And it might have a description, it might have other stuff like that, okay? So I probably want to have a list of these images on my main carousel, right? Images. So the question, this now becomes linked content. And there's a bunch of different ways to do linked content. The one way to do it is if this is like, say this is a module, and every time I use this module, I want to have a different list of carousel items on there. I'm going to nest it. I'm going to create nested linked content. And if you want to visualize how that actually is, imagine that these carousel items are actually inside this item. They live there. They exist only for this item. Okay? There's a list of these carousel items, and they're kind of like contained by this. And if I delete this one, I deleted my entire list, right? That's one way to do it. The other way to do it, and this is what Kevin discovered when he was doing his the other day, is that I could create a shared list of carousel items, okay? And I could link my images list to that by creating a shared list, okay? Now, every time I create a carousel, it will be linked over to here. It will show me the same list of items, which is kind of cool. Might be a little bit like, well, that's kind of boring. Like, I probably don't want to see the same list everywhere, but you might want to see the same list everywhere. Who knows, right? But let's take it to another level where maybe there's actually a choosable list of items. So I have like carousel items and carousel items 2, something like that. And my user gets to choose which list. That's another way we can set up this linked content field where they can choose between which, now both of these carousel items list are going to have the same schema, the same model, but now my images list could be linked to either one. So now I've given my users the ability to choose, and this is called a user selectable linked content. Okay. There's even another way that I could potentially do this. Any questions on these two? Basically,
Yeah. So you mean to say that choosing any list means that there will be a grid or a drop down or a checkbox,
no,
right?
nope.
No.
This is currently linking to the link type. You're ahead of me, Mohit. You're actually, it's a good segue. So this is like, and this is the entire, oh, that could be a little smaller, couldn't it? Entire list, okay?
Yeah.
Content link, or linked content, I should say. And it's linked to the entire list, okay? I'm not choosing which items in the list, the entire list is linked, okay? The other way we can do linked content is to do some items, okay? So some items in the list. So I could do a single item, but I don't want to have a single item in my carousel. I want to have multiple. But imagine this scenario where I have a list of carousel items. Delete that link here. And I have a list of, so imagine I have like 2,000 carousel items that I might use, okay? Oh, wow, waves, hi. Figma's awesome. How did that happen? I don't even know. Oh, look at that. Whee! Okay, sorry. I say that I have lots of these, okay? I don't want to put them all in my carousel. I want to choose, okay? So we could do what's called a search list box of items, okay? That search list box. Or I could do a checkbox list, okay? A search list box is great if I have greater than, I say 50 items. Okay, probably don't want to show that many checkboxes. And this is like less than 50 checkboxes are nice because I can see them all. Okay.
Okay, you mean to say which columns I have to select, right?
In this case,
yeah.
In this case, I'm going to have a few more options that are there. Okay. But when we're modeling content, this is what we can set up. And this is one of the reasons why, by the way, all of these things are lists of type carousel item. They're the same model. So this is why Agility has a model, and then a list can use that model, but it can be reused. That's why it's for setting this up. Hang on, I got a Slack message. I just want to check this message. Is somebody messaging me? Oh, it's Gina. Okay, cool. Something else. Totally something else. Okay, here we go. All right, so let's model a couple of these real quick, and I'll show you how fun and easy it is to do it. Okay, so the first model I'm going to create is the carousel item. So when you're creating these things, you want to create the lowest one first, the one that you're going to refer to. It has to already exist before I can link to it. Does that make sense? So I'm going to create a carousel item. Okay, let's create that model. I'm going to give it, and I'm going to use my thing. This is going to title, an image, and a CTA. Okay, let's actually do it like we say. And I'm using modeling in Plenum is amazing, by the way. So freaking great. So I have my title. I have an image. I can just filter by image type. I'm going to create an image. Just call it an image because I'm super boring. Let's make that required. And then I'm going to do a call to action, which is going to be a URL field. And I call this CTA. And I'm going to make that not required. So you don't necessarily have to have a link, okay? Now, if I'm a developer, I have to be smart enough when I output this thing to say, hey, maybe there's a link and maybe there's not a link. So even just choosing what field is required has a huge impact on how I'm going to output this thing. But we're not going to talk too much about that now. We're just modeling content. By the way, I talk really fast. I can slow down if you want me to, but I'd rather not because I like to go fast. Okay, let's go ahead and create our module now, and we're going to do it nested first, okay? So carousel with nested items. Okay, so it's going to create that page module, and a page module is almost exactly the same as a content item, but the idea is it's going to have a visual output on my website somewhere, okay? So I'm going to probably do like a text field, probably for the heading, although I might not. Sometimes you'd have a heading module that's completely separate. Let's go ahead and do that. And then I'm going to do linked content. So linked content is a type of a field. We call it a reference field. Drop that in there. There are a zillion properties on here, and this is why we get into this, okay? So I'm going to call these just the images. I could call them items, whatever I want. My field type now is because it's linked content, my properties, I have all kinds of choices. Check this out. We're going to do child content, right? So looking at my diagram here, we're doing this one. So it's child content of type carousel item. So which content model do I want to use? Carousel item. That means what this means is that every time I create one of these page modules and put it on a page, it's going to create a new list of carousel items. And do I want a list or an item? I want a list, multiple of these things, and it's going to show me an embedded view of that list. Okay. What columns do I want to show? Let's do title. Let's do modified date and status. Okay. Simple. And I'm going to use the default sort. We talked a lot about sorting the last few days. Save that. Cool. Now let's see what happens when we use it. I'm going to go to my pages. By the way, I always have multiple tabs open just to make my life easy. Maybe it makes my life hard. I don't know. Okay, here we go. Let's go and put this module on here. Carousel with nested items. Sort right at the top. All right, popped it on there. Let's open that up now. So I've got my heading, and notice when it's nested content, I don't have anything to link this content to because until I actually save this, there's nothing to actually contain these items. So nested items. So I have to save this to actually create this list. So I save it, the list gets created. Now I can go and add some items in here and call this item 1. And let's get some pictures and put them in there. I think I got some pictures here. Let's go pictures. And here's a picture of me. And we're going to link it to a URL. By the way, I love this new URL picker. Put to the home page. Save that. Cool. All right, now we've got item 1. And it's in there, okay? This list doesn't exist anywhere else, okay? It does not exist. There is no list over here in the content area called carousel items or anything like that, okay? It only exists on this page. And if I delete it, this whole list is gone, right? Forever. And if I create a new carousel, it's a totally new list, completely new. That's what nested content means. Okay. And I probably want to, this is another thing. I named this thing carousel with nested items, and it doesn't really tell me what's going on here. So I might want to actually change the display name on there, which I can do on the properties of this module. So photos of me, something like that. Now it's a little more useful. And now on my actual homepage, it's going to say photos of me. And this, I might want to do this on here too, to give some indication of which text block with image is actually on here. And now you can see how this actually makes a lot more sense. We probably should do this on our demo account to make this a little easier to understand what's going on. So this gray is telling me it's going to use the text block with image module, but this title is like telling me which it is. And if the module name is the exact same name as the title, we just show the title. So that's how that's happening. All right, so that's nested content. Any questions on how nested content works? Yeah, one interesting thing that's cool to think about is if I have like a list of blog posts, and say I had like 2,000 blog posts, and on those blog posts, maybe I had like a gallery. And if that gallery was nested, I just created 2,000 lists of galleries that are on there. So that might not be the best architecture, but that's one way to think of doing it, okay? Cool. Now let's do a similar kind of thing where we're going to use a shared list. So the first thing I got to do is create a list of carousel items. So I'm going to go into the usage list. Oops, I'm on the wrong spot. I'm going to content models, go to my carousel items. I'm going to go to here, this usage tab. I'm going to add a container, a list of carousel items. Okay, so I'm going to say carousels 1. All right. I'm not going to put it in a group, and I'm not going to restrict to a single container or a single item. Okay. Carousels 1. I'm actually going to create another one too, just for fun. Carousels 2. All right. Let's jump over to the content area for a second. And this is probably why you might want to have groups, because if I have a lot of carousels, I probably want to put them in the group, right? It's not the easiest to get them in a group, but it's not that hard either. Here, apply. Here, boom, apply. It'd be nice if you could drag and drop them, right? Maybe later. You'd probably want to do a group for like the blog post too. So once you group things, it starts to make a little more sense where things are. And you can see how flexible Agility is to kind of do this stuff. But you have to kind of know how to set it up, but it makes a huge impact on the end user, on their experience with the product. Because now this is like, oh, I get it. My carousels are all here. This is everything from my blog post. And I've got stuff that's like, other stuff is here. So categorizing is important, right? Now, this didn't actually change my models. It just puts them in categories. Okay. Let's go and create some stuff. And, oh, Gina, yeah?
Sorry, I'm going to be annoying. Why is it really hard to make it? Because by making it drag and drop, you eliminate 3 steps.
Oh yeah, totally. Just haven't done it yet.
Okay.
It should be drag and drop.
Yeah, it just seems more intuitive for it to
We just have limited developer resources.
That's all good. I'll shut up.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm going to create a couple of carousel items in here just for messing around and whatever. Hey, pictures of Joel. It's great. Okay, so now let's go back to our this. So now we want to get to, let's do the one where we have a carousel that's linked to one shared list. Okay, and we're gonna stick with modules here, but I could be creating content, a carousel. By the way, these should probably be called carousel items, but I'm going to stick with modules for now on this one that we're working with. So let's do carousel with shared list. All right. All right, so we'll do a heading just to give it some text, and we'll do linked content. Oops. All right, so this is the items. Here's another trick. A lot of times a developer will do this, and they'll do like what we call camel case carousel items like that. And your field label ends up not having a space in it because they were thinking it was the field name. So really what we want is that, because This is what my user is going to see as carousel items, and this is like the field name that the developers will use. So that's another thing just to kind of keep an eye on as a developer when you're setting things up, to be careful of your camel case. Or what's really annoying is when people do stuff like this, and then I go really crazy, and it's like, what? You're so lazy as a developer. Come on, let's just be nice to our users and give them something that looks nice. Anyway, details matter. All right, so our field property is going to be linked to shared content this time, not nested content. It's going to be linked to the entire content list, and we're going to pick a specific content list. And which content is that? We're going to do carousels 1. And now here's the point of contention that the product team was arguing about, and rightly so. Should I show an embedded view of this list here, or should I just show a link? Let's just look at it with a link first, okay? All right, so now let's go and add this onto a page. I'm going to go to a different page so we don't get confused about which module we have. I'm going to go add module, carousel with shared list. Let's throw that on there at the top. Okay, so immediately I don't have to create this item to see what items are in this list, because that list already exists, right? I can say that I will do that. So now I have a link over to that list, and now I can go work with that list. Super easy, okay? The only reason to show a nested view in here would be so I don't have to do that second step to open that list, which doesn't seem like a lot to me. I'm like, I don't know, why do I have to do a second step? But it seems to be a thing. It's a big deal. And we may change this, but now you get into a situation where let's just show the embedded view. And I'm going to pick what columns I want to see. And let's do the same. Let's just pick the same columns, whatever. Let's update that. And we'll save it. The only thing I can think of that for the reason that you might want to see this in here is it's kind of nice, right? It's like, now I don't have to open it up and see that. I can kind of see that. That might be important. But what's kind of troubling is that the user might not understand that this is the shared list. It doesn't just exist on this item. It's also over here in content under here, these carousels 1. It's the same list. So that to me is like, could be a little confusing for users. And I think it's certainly something we want to consider making more intuitive, okay? The other thing that folks get kind of tripped up on is that developers like to do this, and our system did this thing where it allows you to change the sort order based on, it creates this sort ID field. So now it's a shared list, but the sort order is specific to this list. So now I have the ability, I think I might have to select one. No, I think we actually broke this. So I have to go to the classic version. This is actually a bug. It gets even more confusing because there's bugs. Let's open this over here. Come on, load up. Okay, here we go. And now if I move this up and down, this sort order is specific to this item. So it can be like weird. I built this for Chorus Networks because they wanted to have different TV show pages that change the sort order of the episodes of the TV show for like different pages. I don't remember why, and it got overused because of a bug. So I don't want to get too deep into that, but the sort order thing becomes a huge deal for folks. So I don't want to dig too deep in it, but it's definitely a thing. Anyway, I'm going to get rid of that field. Now let's do the other case we were talking about. I'm going to go back to you just using a link. But let's make it a user selectable list. Okay, so we implemented like this one where it's like a 1-to-1, and you can see how that would be kind of useful, but not that powerful because I might have lots of items in here and I probably don't want to have like a single carousel. But if it was, imagine if it was a link to like the employee bios list, I might just have one list of employee bios that I want to be able to use a module to put on my page. So in that case, that would make sense, okay? In this case, say I have multiple lists of carousel items, or maybe multiple like lists of team members or things like that I want to show here. There's lots of different cases here. So instead of just saying a specific content list, I can say, you know what, it's user selectable. And I want to have all lists that share the same content model that I'm going to pick. So every list that has the carousel item model, I'm going to pick. So let's do that. And it's going to show a link. So now on my page, what do I see? Ooh, what? I get to choose which content. So I can say, hey, it's the carousels 1 list, which is now here. Or I can say the carousels 2 list, which is here. And that's going to completely change how which images are output, okay? Now, this is just showing the link. Let's look at what it looks like if I have an embedded list. Embedded view of the list. Boom, do that, save. Come back to here. Now, this is probably why people want to have an embedded list, right? Because I just choose which list and I can see it right here, okay? Pretty cool how now I have a ton of capabilities that are kind of baked into my CMS, my linked content, okay? So there's 3 kinds of linked content that we did. The third kind that I think we just have time for is this one. So maybe I don't want to link to all the items in the list. Maybe I want to be able to allow the user to say, you know what? I have this massive list of carousel items that I want to be able to choose from. Or maybe I want to be able to choose from multiple lists. I know for Scene uses this for their offers that are on their homepage. So actually, a lot of our customers do this that have like promos. They have a, oh my God, there's a little friend. A list of promos that they want to be able to choose to go on their homepage. And they end up with this massive, huge list, and they only want to pick them. So let's look at those different options in our modeling, okay? All right. So on my field properties, oh wait, let's create a different module because I don't want to confuse the issue here. So let's do carousels, selected items from shared list. Long title. Okay. Create that. And yeah, again, heading again, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Linked content. Items. Okay, here we go. So we're going to go shared content. What am I going to pick here? Anybody?
Entire content.
Nope. I want to allow them to pick specific items from the list. Okay. And I'm going to use, let's start off, we'll use checkbox list first, okay? So I want to select from many items in the list. And let's go back to user selectable list because this is kind of fun, even though it doesn't happen too often. I'm going to use the carousel item. And which column do I want to use? The title column. I'm going to save the text to create a new field for that. I'm going to save the values. And I only have one, let's do 2 column counts. All right. Oh my gosh, that's a lot of options. Now it's saved a couple of fields here because what's going to do is it's going to store my values that I select in here and the text values here so that if I can show it in the list. All right, don't worry too much about that. So let's go and let's do it on the contact us page. All right, add a module, carousel with selected items from shared list. Open that thing up. And we're going to use carousels 1. And oh, look, I have checkboxes to choose which carousel items I want to actually show. Okay, choose. And then if I change my list, now there's nothing in the carousel items list. Let's go create another one in there. I'm going to call this item 3. Let's upload. Do I have any images here I can drop in? So upload from a play I did. It's actually my daughter pretending to get drunk on stage, playing Anne of Green Gables. So now I could choose item 3 in here from carousel list 2. And if there was a lot of items, then I would be able to work with that. Okay. So a checkbox list works really well if I have less than 50 items, because I don't want to have too many checkboxes here. If I have thousands of items, which often does happen on systems that get big, I could change this to use what's called what's called a search list box. Okay. So now everything's the same, except I get to pick my title field again. Let's go ahead and do that. And now it's going to render slightly differently. It's going to be like a tag picker kind of a thing, right? And I can change which items are on there, move them around, and I can change the order of them. So I have, hang on, which are my items? A and B, okay? Oh my goodness, I think I just found a bug. Let's open this in classic mode. We won't talk about that bug right now, and I'll fix it later. Okay, so it's not as nice, but if I go AAA, I can pick AAA and it allows me to move them around and change the order of them and pick which ones I want from the list. Okay, so super useful. This one is probably one of the more powerful features of agility, because you can imagine if this carousels list, whatever list I've linked to, has hundreds or maybe even thousands of items, I don't want to look at them all at the same time. I want to be able to search for them. Okay. So if I was to show you like Shoppers Drug Mart or Scene, they use this a lot. And so we actually made this control work better. But for some reason, somebody must have broken into my house and typed in some code on my machine that broke things. This is what it's supposed to look like. I think there's a problem with the sort order thing. Anyway, but I can actually jump into this one and edit it and around, and you should be able to like, looks like it's doing a lot of loading. But anyway, you should be able to reorder these nicely. And I think that's, yeah, that's broken. Oh my gosh. Okay. So that's, you guys have now learned lots and lots about linked content and how to work with linked content. And there you go.